All right, it's the deep end, folks, and there's been an issue that's been bugging me, and we've talked about it a bit on the show before, and we've talked about it in the show chat as well. And it needs to finally come to the forefront. And I wish Kyle was here because we've been going back and forth on this one a bunch. Because we've hinted at it, we've joked about it, and have even said a few snide things in passing. And well, I wanted to talk to you, all of you guys, and to the panel at large for a bit about free speech, and I'm putting that in air quotes. Free speech, and how it's been deified in a way that people think that it's completely untouchable in this day and age, and how. And I put it with a hashtag because I'm snarky as shit. Hashtag all speech matters, because that's what these people are going with here, instead of, let's have just regular speech out there. And we're not going to have hate speech. Everybody's like, no, you need to have hate speech because if you don't have hate speech, it's like, no, all speech doesn't matter, guys. It really doesn't. So
I disagree.
So first off, let's look closely at that First Amendment, that fucking pesky First Amendment. So this is it in full here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, not really to do with this one, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right for people to peaceably assemble or petition the government for a redress of grievances. So, the Bill of Rights and the Constitution is a loaded document for a reason. The framers had a pretty goddamn good idea of what they were saying because they grew up in a culture where that wasn't the norm. They literally fought and died for the rights in these documents. So they know very damn well what was being venerated in these words would have to carry through the entire nation's being. Have you ever thought about the weight that comes from having to think, oh, well, we need to write a constitution that's going to last this country for the rest of time? They hope all throughout time, but I don't know if we're going to last 2 more years. But the thing is, it's also the reason that so many forms of free speech have been brought up, whether it be black armbands for protesting against a war, not standing up for the pledge, kneeling during the national anthem. These are all free speech. Hell, even porn is considered free speech, and we love the SCOTUS for deciding that. However, let's be frank for a second. People protesting and getting Milo, Yiannopoulos, and Ann Coulter kicked out of a venue before they even show up is another form of free speech. It says nowhere in the First Amendment that people have a right to the platforms that they are given. Which brings me to the crux of what's going on in my head. I don't cry for free speech when someone is no platform. I think it's simply another tool in somebody else's arsenal in the great contest over ideas. Yes, if somebody wants to express bad ideas on the street, I have no recourse except for countering their speech in a well-mannered method. I can't push them off the street. I can't or wouldn't ever condone kicking that person's ass. I would just have to try my best to fight those bad ideas being expressed, if I cared enough to do so. So there we go. That's a good place to stop for right now, because you have people like Richard Spencer have been brought into the light, and they're giving him a fucking special on CNN to express his ideas. And to me, that's a bad idea. And I agree. I'm going to argue against CNN. I'm still going to fight against Richard Spencer. Because you should not be giving your millions and millions of people on your platform this guy your airtime. I firmly believe that he's not being hindered by you not having someone come to their stage. Like when the whole Berkeley thing happened.
Point out.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to point out that PBS has sponsored political things. They have sponsored controversial ideas. They haven't sponsored an event for Richard Spencer.
Yeah.
They haven't.
Because
PBS,
he doesn't belong in the fucking public.
That's just it. So here's what I want to say real quick is that I want no laws against anything Richard Spencer is saying.
No.
I want none of that. I want no laws against anything he said.
I don't want the anti-Nazi thing like they have in Germany. I don't want that, because once you start saying you can't have this kind of speech, what's to stop the government from going beyond that?
Right.
And so for a lot of people out there, my problem isn't with free speech. I think free speech is fucking wonderful. Everybody should have it. It's the reason we have a podcast. It's the reason we can say all the shit that we say about Trump and other people in this country. Richard
Spencer is perfectly fine to purchase his own domain space, which he can, and no one should be able to, and this is where we get into corporate versus government, but I don't think anyone who sells domain spaces just sells domain spaces should get a say in how that speech is used. And this is something that we might go into later, but yeah, he should be able to purchase his own domain space, just buy it and say whatever he wants. I don't think it's responsible of CNN to give him a platform.
No, I don't think so either. So
I don't think it's responsible.
But there's a lot of people pretending that bringing him to CNN is going to do wonders to make him go away. It's not. It's going to normalize his racist and homophobic ways of thinking. It's going to give the alt-right a way for them to grow even larger. It won't be the best.
That's why he's going on. He knows. He knows that. He knows he's going to be ridiculed. He knows he's going to be hated. He knows there's going to be people who speak out against it. Mm-hmm. He knows that. And CNN has no obligation to air it. They have none. Just like the government has no obligation to air it. They simply have they just simply have no recourse to say anything against it.
Yeah. And so when this whole thing's happening, there's a lot of people that think, bringing bad ideas into the light is the best disinfectant that you can use. So what was it that finally killed off Milo Yiannopoulos? Does anybody remember? Yeah, he got
It was that he defended a pedophile.
Yeah, he got platformed at showing up as CPAC because of some of the horrible shit he said about child sexual abuse. Him and as well as other people. Nothing else mattered to the right. Nothing. Just kids. So shall we?
Just kids in their context.
Yeah. So
not in their educational context, not in their well-being context, not in their access to healthcare, not in their access to food.
Nope. Whether they're being fucked by a priest or not.
Right.
And even then.
Just the topic of discussion of fucking a kid. Just that topic. That's it. Just the topic of fucking a kid. That's what the right is.
And the thing that
not the actual implications, not the actual overarching issues that might result, not the surrounding parameters. It's fine.
No. And the thing that really kills me about the whole thing is that clip that, finally got him removed from the public eye. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, well, it's because people like Bill Maher did something about it. And it's like, no. He went on the Joe Rogan show months ahead of time before that even hit the public. Like, that was already out and everybody had seen it at that point. Everybody had seen it at that point.
Correlation, not causation. If that shit had not come out shortly after Bill Maher, like if it had come out a month later, Bill Maher couldn't have claimed it. It just happened to correlate. Yep. Bill Maher, atheist.
So what I want to also talk about real quick is that the First Amendment guarantees that Congress shall make no law respecting establishment, blah, 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 or abridging the freedom of speech. Congress shall make no law abridging freedom of speech, if you want to use ellipses in there. That doesn't mean that, corporate news can say, no, we're not going to have you on. That doesn't mean that a privately owned institution can say, no, we're not going to have you on. If these people like to think that they are owed a platform, like they deserve to have the platform that they are given, that's not true, because all you have to do is just flip it 180 degrees. If you have somebody like Ann Coulter showing up at Berkeley, who's honestly there just to start shit and piss people off and, hopefully get the riots that get her more notoriety and attention. What if you had, let's see, what if you, let's just go to the basic example here. What if you had Richard Dawkins show up at Liberty University and demand that the platform at Liberty University should be given to him because, people invited him to show up there? They would not be susceptible to that at all. They wouldn't like that. They wouldn't want that.
Right.
Some people might. I think it'd be interesting as fuck to watch, but the thing is like, Dawkins isn't spreading hate. So,
isn't he?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about Dawkins the person instead of Dawkins the scientist, but right. he's a hobbled old stroke victim now. So don't mean to be too mean to the guy. So anyway, shall we look up the terminology for no platform? I have no issue with no platforming. I think that a platform is something that you need to protect. You need to have your own ownership of things. Like we talked in chat earlier last week where we're talking about our Facebook walls. If someone comes into my shit and starts saying terrible things or, saying shit about my family or stuff on my wall, and I'm like, nope, shutting you down. And they're gonna be like, oh, you're hindering my free speech. No, I'm just not giving you access to my platform. That's all I'm doing. That's why we don't have shitheads on this podcast. I mean, I don't want to.
This issue gets more complex for me when we talk about corporations, massive corporations like Twitter and Facebook. Now, when they started, that wasn't necessarily their intent. They weren't necessarily looking for this kind of issue, and they had policies, and I get it. But so we're now in an age where things have changed, where corporations can have massive power. And I'm not necessarily dissing corporations, and I have a lot of issues with corporate law and a corporate business tax and power. But and here's where we come to, if we value free speech. When the founding fathers formed the government was the largest power they could possibly imagine. Now we have influential powers all over the place. And if we value and they're not, and they are regulated by governments, and I'm sorry, I value governments. I do. I value governments. Sorry guys. It's the reality. Governments are a function of human organizing.
It keeps chaos.
It started. It started with chiefs in tribes, and we've grown since then.
It started with alpha males in monkey packs. You know.
Hey, there's alpha females too.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying.
The bonobos.
Yep. So
the bonobo. But my point is that yes, we do have to have a conversation about free speech within the corporations. The corporations shouldn't get a right to control speech, and we have to have a conversation about this. But there is also the issue of, you don't necessarily have a right to all the speech all the time just because you're noticeable.
You're an American.
Because you're a white male, yeah, you're gay, but you don't have an ownership of that speech. No. And this is a complex issue at this point in my consideration.
Like, look, if I came out and I, went out and broadly went against the terms of service that we all agree to whenever we sign up for these platforms, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever the fuck else people might be using, if you violate the terms of service, they have every right to say, nah, you're not welcome here, goodbye. And I think that if you should be given a chance to come back. But the funny thing is like, when you violate terms of service and they kick off that account, you know how easy it is to make another email account and get back on these fucking platforms. It's not that goddamn hard. So anyway.
Right. But okay, so here's what I'm getting at is, these are becoming public forums. These are becoming the public square. In fact, many of these companies benefit from public subsidies in many ways. In many ways.
Yeah.
And
but don't get it twisted. They're getting a lot from these. The government is getting a lot from these companies, in terms of, finding out who's doing what and where, like you were talking about with the circle, there's no secrets when you put shit online, guys. Your online presence is trackable through just about every fucking thing that you do. Even that shit that you think no one's ever going to find about on the onion router that you're using, somebody's going to find it. It'll eventually get scrubbed somehow. So anyway.
And I get it. It's just that the value of free speech is important, and we need to find a balance between private ownership of a topic and allowing free speech. This is something that we have to do. In the past, it was, if somebody is shouting crazy shit in a park, anyone can go there.
Yeah.
So you got to let them do it.
Or what's the place in London where it's Speaker Square or something like that, where anybody's allowed to stand up on top of that dais for a little bit and like just ramble on whatever the fuck they want to ramble about, and they can't do anything about it. So anyway, I want to get into no platforming, and I looked it up, and Rational Wiki has great fucking articles you can read up on it. So I humbly suggest everybody go check this out. No platforming is the practice of preventing someone either through policy or from protest, from spreading their ideas through a particular event or a website. The term is mostly used to refer to rescinding an invitation to someone asked to speak in an event, such as a guest lecture at a college like Milo and, Ann Coulter and Richard Spencer and all that shit. The concept apparently originates from the British National Union of Students to prevent people they disagree with from giving speeches at college campuses there. It is similar to the political action of cordon sanitaire, where a politician or political party is either unconditionally excluded from coalitions or is other forms of cooperation, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, we don't want to get into that. So no platform is typically invoked for issues such as racism, sexism, homophobia, Holocaust denial, and so forth. And it's going into so much as far as, transphobia, Islamophobia, all sorts of other things out there, feminism, anti-feminism, and everything like that. No platforming, at best, is, according to this article here, is an attempt to prevent a balance fallacy, with protesters refusing to allow tacit endorsement of reactionary views. So I understand what they're saying there, the balance fallacy, where you need to hear all sides of the argument. No, you honestly don't need to hear all sides of every argument, because there's just some ideas.
No, there's some ideas that are just worthless.
And the thing is that leave that up to the platform themselves. Like if it's a college campus and they say, no, we're not going to have you here because all you're going to do is cause riots and shit like that. That's all that's on them. If they don't want them there, don't invite them there. That's completely up to them. But if that person still wants to come up to, the public area of the school that people are allowed to come to and give their speech there, by all means, fine, go ahead and do that. They're not going to do it because they're not going to get paid for it, and they're not going to have their safety guaranteed. And I'm talking about safety guaranteed, not so much as the Richard Spencer getting punched in the fucking head, though I'll laugh at that every fucking time I see that gif. I don't give a shit. It's punching a Nazi. It's funny as hell. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm just saying I get it. And so for me, there's a lot more there that we can get into, but I want to wrap this up. The best example I can give for this in recent memory for me would be most people would understand is like the Duggars getting kicked off of television, or, the Duck Dynasty people leaving television because they were spreading bad ideas, and they came back and they tried to say my freedom of speech is being hampered because they took us off TV. No, they own the fucking television station that you're putting your show on. And they said, no, thank you. You can go.
Okay, so this is where I am coming into a conflict recently.
Yeah.
Is understanding the difference between private and public, and corporations now have so much power for the ideas free speech was not built to protect speech that we find agreeable. It was built to protect free speech that we find disagreeable. And I cannot stand what the Duggars say. I hate their concepts. I hate their concepts of what they live for. I find it disgusting.
Reprehensible.
I find it abhorrent.
Least, yeah.
Reprehensible. Yes. I find it absolutely abhorrent. But I mean, in the past we had people arrested for cursing, you guys. And I don't think their ideas are good. I don't think that they're beneficial. I don't think that they're good for society. But I'm coming into a conflict recently with disallowing free speech in what is turning into a public square.
And
Facebook.
That would have to be something we'd have to dig into further and further to see what kind of laws are on the books. And we promise that probably another deep end coming up in a month or so. But anyway, you're saying think about.
Yeah, just these obviously you guys can tell at the end of this we haven't reached any conclusions.
No, we're trying to leave it up in the open for you guys, and I'm going to tie it up here in a second. Fine. So let Felicia
think about this shit. Think hard. Think hard on this shit. That's what we're here for. Is think about it, because that's what we're doing.
We present the ideas and be like, "Hey, have you ever thought about this?" Yeah,
let's tackle this, you guys. Let's think deep about this. Let's think about the implications. All right, go out there and think.
So to wrap it up, the webcomic XKCD sums it up just absolutely fucking perfectly and nicely. He says, public service announcement. The right to free speech means the government can't arrest you for what you say. It doesn't mean that anyone else has to listen to your bullshit or host while you share it. The First Amendment doesn't shield you from criticism or consequences. If you're yelled at, boycotted, have your show canceled, or get banned from an internet community, your free speech rights are not being violated. It's just that the people listening think that you're an asshole, and they're showing you the door.
Android.